Once we've arrived and check out our job instructions, let's go ahead and move forward to mark ourselves on site. Use the bottom right arrow to move to the step that is called Invoice. Also notice when this loads up, the Invoice screen is where you're officially going to make your on-site time punch. Now that we're on our invoice screen, there are a couple options you can use to add items to your invoice. The first one you'll see up on the top left is called the Scan button. Selecting that will turn your camera into a barcode scanner where, if you have your price book with barcodes assigned to it, printed out and laminated, you can rifle through a binder or another book and scan your items onto your invoice. To the right of that, you'll notice a button that says Plus Item. Let's go ahead and open that now. From the Add Item screen, there are two separate options that you can use to add items to your invoice. The first option you'll see is in the dead center of the screen. It is a search bar. Think of this like a Google or a Yahoo search that is specific to your price book. The criteria you enter will query your book and bring you results that match your search criteria. I'm going to search for a diagnostic. Notice while I'm doing this that I do not have to type out the full word. Anything in my book that matches my criteria as DIAG will present itself. From here I can select which diagnostic I'd like to add to my invoice. Selecting the item will bring up the Edit Invoice Item screen, wherein you have the opportunity, if you need to edit this specific line item before it goes on to today's invoice. At the top left of your screen, you will see a Plus Equip button. If you'd like to assign this specific line item to existing equipment on file, you can select that button and tie it to any equipment that is on file. To the right of that, you'll see a button that says Plus AGR. This is the same idea where you can assign a task to a specific item, but instead of equipment, we can assign it to an existing agreement. And finally, on the top right, you'll see a Plus War button. You probably guessed it, but yes, this is how you assign specific line items to existing warranties on file with this customer. Assigning equipment, agreements, or warranties will reflect on your pricing as well. Below that, you're going to see the item number and type. Those are non-editable. The logic behind that is if we get our hands on this line item and change everything below it, it at least gives our office staff a fighting chance to know what it started its life as. Below the item number and type, you'll see a description. This is how this line item is going to show up on the invoice for the customer. Below that is the department. This will default to whatever department the call is assigned under. However, let's say, for example, you're on top of a Walmart and it says residential. If you do need to change the department, you do have the opportunity to do so here. Below that, you'll see your price level. Now, this is line item specific. You may have certain line items in your book that do have different levels, and you may have some that don't. In this case, my diagnostic does have different price levels. My standard price, as you'll see here, is $99. If I'd like to change that, I can say, for example, hey, this is a club member. Select the club member price and you'll see that it automatically brings it down to $78. On the other side of the coin, let's say, hey, this is an after-hours emergency. Look at that. It changes it automatically to $115. The price itself as we move down is editable. And then lastly, you'll see a quantity. How many are we adding to the invoice? The last thing to take note of here is there's a series of checkboxes on the bottom of the screen. Not anything you really need to worry about from a tech side of things, as these are controlled by your book, but one thing to point out is the discountable checkbox. If that's checked as discountable, it does not mean that this item is automatically getting a discount. What it means is in the future, if we were to apply a discount to this invoice, it would hit any items that we have selected here as discountable, leaving you with the ability to have multiple things on an invoice that are either discountable or not, and when the discount's applied, giving you the appropriate number for any line items that were previously marked as discountable. The last thing we're going to do to add this to our invoice is up in the top right corner, we're going to hit that Save button. The next option we're going to see is up on the top right of the screen and is called Catalog. This is just another way to walk through or look through your book. Selecting that will break your price book down into categories and sections, which you can then walk through to get to the appropriate line item you're looking for. So for today, I'd like to add a task. I'm going to do it for my flat rate book. Here's all my flat rate groups. And let's just do an installation. I select that grouping, and all of my line items underneath that group show up here. From there, I can select the appropriate task, and just as before, have an opportunity to edit it, but if I'm ready to go, I'm just going to hit Save up in the top right. So in conclusion, you have 3 options of adding items to the invoice. You can do all of them together on the same call, or if you have a preference, you can marry yourself to one out of the gate and rock and roll with that moving forward. To the right of that item button on the top of our screen, we're going to see a button that says plus agree. This is how the technicians can sell agreements in the field. Selecting the plus agree button will open up an agreement screen. They have 2 options from here, whether it be selling a new one or renewing an existing or expired agreement. To sell a new agreement, all the technicians have to do is select the type dropdown and select the appropriate agreement they'd like. You'll notice on the bottom of my screen, all the details have automatically filled out. That information is coming directly from your agreement builder in SWRe21. I referenced it a little bit ago, but we can also renew existing agreements. On the top right of this screen, you'll see a gray button that says Renew. Selecting that will open up all my agreement history of this customer, whether it's active, expired, or again, terminated. You can renew from any of these categories. Let's renew an expired one by selecting it. And you'll also notice that everything's going to autofill here, including, if you look at the very bottom of the screen, the agreement number from the initial agreement we're renewing from. To the right of the agreement button, you'll see a button that says plus visit. This is a very specific scenario, but let's say you're at a customer's house who is an agreement customer, but you're not there today for an agreement visit. To the right of the plus visit button, you'll notice our discount option. Selecting that will bring you to a screen where you can add a discount. We give you several options to do so. None will be the default selection, just in case you accidentally hit this. We don't want you accidentally throwing around discounts where they're not needed. To the right of that, you'll see the option for a flat dollar amount. Moving on, a percentage off the invoice. And then finally, types of discounts that are set up in your reference library back in SWRe21. Here's a quick look at some of the ones in my company. Once we have the appropriate discount, we select it and hit Save up in the top right. I often get a question, hey, I don't see my discount here. Not to worry, next screen, all the math will compute for you. Once we've added a few line items, looked at any discounts, or tried to sell an agreement, we can go ahead and present the invoice to the customer. In order to do that, move forward with the bottom right arrow once again. Once we've built our invoice, we're ready to present it to the customer. Moving to the Authorize screen will give your customers their first look at the invoice that you've built. On the top left, you'll see your logo, your company information, the customer information, and lastly, the job information, including the invoice number, the job number, the date, and the head technician. As we move down, you're going to see the line items that you've put on your invoice, as well as any content blocks that you've put through the Manage website with SWRemote. If it looks good for the customer, we can have them sign at the bottom and move forward. So let's go ahead and sign. At this point, once you have that authorization and move forward, you get to the payment screen. You probably noticed this is a massive time hop. So in between that last signature and this payment screen is when the job is actually being completed. During that time, there are new things in the menu that I want to show you. If we open our menu up in the top left, you may have noticed before there were a couple buttons that were grayed out that are now an option to select. The first of which is Notes. If we click on the Notes button, you are going to get to a page where you see Work Done and Work Suggested notes. It's important to note here that these are customer facing. They will show up on the invoice, and they will also show up in the history for this call as we move forward. There are 3 different options for adding notes. The first is to simply type. Nothing mind-blowing about typing. Remember, as these are going to the customer, spelling, grammar, and context are all vital. The second option you can do, and I'm going to walk over to Suggested to do it, is you can speak to type. Recommend the customer signs up for an annual maintenance agreement. One thing to note here, and I haven't been holding out on you on purpose, is anywhere in the app where the keyboard works, the speak to type functionality will work as well. Option 3, and my personal favorite, is through the use of our Manage website, you can preload notes that are used frequently by your technicians. At the bottom of both Work Done and work suggested screens, you'll see a drop down where it asks you if you'd like to add predefined notes. I'm going to add a predefined work suggested note. I'm in the mindset of often saying, hey guys, let's get your ducts cleaned. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's recommend the customer gets their ducts cleaned. Go ahead and auto-populate that. One thing to note here is you can have as many of these predetermined notes as you'd like. There is no limit, and it really does help you control the narrative with your customers. Again, these are customer-facing notes. Another option that is new in the menu is the parts button. You're going to see that below my photos. If I hit parts, what it's going to do is open me up into a screen that has all the line items for my invoice listed. Within here, I can select a line item and add a part to it from our parts book. Think of this as the backside of the invoice. This is not going to the customer. This is designed to help you in the office understand what was used off the truck for either parts requisitions or restocking the truck in the morning. Once we've accessed the menu to add our notes or any parts associated with the job, we can go ahead and take payment. The first thing you'll notice on top of my screen is that this customer does have a balance on their account. I can include that today with the press of the checkbox below that. Same situation for deposit. If we'd like to assign a deposit to the account, you'll see a drop down where you can pick deposits from your SWRe account. Below that, you'll see your charge box, the total, whether or not there was a balance or a deposit applied, and finally the payment amount. When it comes to selecting payments, there are a couple different options for you. You can take check, credit card, or there's a scene for other. Other is going to be customized to your office, what you have in your reference library as acceptable payment forms. Lastly, there is none. If you are not taking a penny today, you select none. You'll notice that the payment amount zeroes out, and what that will do is create a balance for this ticket back in the office that the office can handle when they see appropriate. For today, I'm going to take a check. If I select check, I drill down and it asks me to give two pieces of information. The first being the check number and the second being the name on the check. I'm of course still taking the check with me, but now my office staff will have all the appropriate information waiting for when I get back. I'm going to move forward. This is why I took a check. There's one more feature I wanted to talk about here. You can customize a check policy through the SWRemote website. Mine, in less polite, or in more polite terms, I should say, is basically saying if your check bounces, you owe us money. And hey, text, don't forget to get the license plate number of the person signing the check. Once we agree to that, it'll allow us to move forward and get our last signature of the day. This is your customer's second look at the invoice. You're also going to gather your second signature here. Notice your logo and company information is still up front. The new things we've added are any notes we've added to the call. Notice work suggested and work done right before my line items. And as we scroll down after our line items, you'll see a little box for the payment details. This is going to be for the customer records. Depending on what payment method you selected, the correlating information will appear under that in the box. As we move down again, we'll see our content blocks or any legalese, our initial signature that said do the work, and now we're going to get a signature that says thank you, and of course I've paid you. Congratulations, you're almost done with the call. One of the last things we can do is called the job debrief. Any office staff out there would know this as the job summary. The opportunity box exists for you to track any opportunities coming out of today's call. Was there an agreement opportunity? If so, you can check it. Were there any leads generated? And if so, you'll notice that it actually drills you down just a little bit more to give us more information on what type of lead, follow-up information, and any other notes. So today, let's just say to keep with my duct cleaning, let's say, hey, I suggest duct cleaning. A follow-up date. When would the customer appreciate you giving them a follow-up? Is the customer notified? Basically checking this means for whoever's following up, is this a cold call or not? Are they expecting us? Or is this something I noticed that I didn't directly talk to them about? And then lastly here, you'll see a follow-up note. What's important here to know is that this does not go to the customer. This is only on your side, and it's a good place to keep any other leads or any other strategic notes that might help you seal the deal, so to speak, with that prior opportunity code. Below that, is there a warranty opportunity? If so, did we sell it? And if we sold it, for how much and for how long does that last? And then lastly, your replacement opportunity. Do they have old equipment? If so, did we sell it today? And if we did, for how much? As we scroll down, you'll see things like job data and call types. Job data is going to pull automatically from your invoice. It's going to be the total of the invoice, the total of the ticket, how many line items or money tasks are on that ticket. If it was a diagnostic only invoice, that would come pre-selected for you. And again, if there was no charge, that would be pre-selected. Lastly, you can set your call type for today's call. Was it under warranty? Was it under contract? Was it non-contract? Or, and I know this never happens, but if it was a callback, you can select that it was so, and then using the callback job history, select from the history which call you're completing and which one it relates to. Once we have that page set, we're going to move forward to complete our call. Now that I'm on the last step, I'm going to send a 10-8 to my office. In the top center of your screen, you would have noticed the 10-8 button started popping up as soon as we got on site. Selecting this will send an alert to anyone in the office with SWRe21's dashboard open. It's going to put a red exclamation point on your call and in the top right corner. Most of our clients use this to signify, hey, it's me, I'm about 10 minutes out from being done, can you get my next call ready to go? The last thing we're going to do is send the invoice or the receipt to the customer. Clicking up in the top left corner will auto-populate with the email on file, and you have an opportunity here to update an email if it's incorrect or simply missing. If everything looks good, you can simply hit send. If it's blank or incorrect, you can type in a new email and hit send and update. That will give the customer their invoice and update your SWRe21 for this customer moving forward. Once we're done, we're going to hit complete assignment in the bottom right corner and select what the call status is as we're leaving this call. Now, in a perfect world, which of course these videos exist in, we're done with the call. However, you know that's not always the case. So in the event that you have to be leaving today or have to be done today and leave, but you're not ready to close the call, you have some options for call status. If I hit this drop down, the first one everyone's going to recognize is, yes, I'm done today, but I'm waiting for a part. Selecting that will let the office know that you're on your way, but this call still needs to be open for when we get that part back in and reassigned to the appropriate tech at the appropriate time. For today, I'm going to mark my call as complete. The last thing I can do is if I have another call, I can dispatch directly to it, or in this case, if I don't, I can actually punch my time card. You would have noticed during the call that my time card statuses were automatically updated. However, in between calls, it is my responsibility to make sure my time card is accurate. You can edit the time card at any point by pressing the button up on the top left next to your menu. From there, you'll get to this screen where it says punch time card and you can select a new status. I'm going to be available and on the clock for the next 3 hours. At this point, my time card is saved, it is up to date and accurate, and if I get another call assigned to me and select that call, the call takes over my time card. So it's vital to remember that time cards during calls are automatic, but in between calls you can update them as frequently as you need to by selecting that button up in the top left next to the menu. Thank you for watching these videos today. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the Point Man team. We hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.